All right. Welcome, everybody. Good morning. My name is Aaron Nelson. I'm the president of the Chamber for Greater Chapel Hill Carborough, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to the first of two meetings that we are going to have. We're calling Doing Business with Big Business, and we're here today because UNC Health reached out to us, and they expressed their interest in really further engaging with the local business community, engaging with smaller enterprises, and diversifying their suppliers and their contractors. So we'd like to take the time today to talk with them about what it is that they buy, what it is that they contract for, and how your organization can do business with them. We've got 90 minutes dedicated today to this session. We're going to break it into two segments. The first segment is going to be a presentation from UNC Health about, they've got several team members with us to talk about purchasing and contracting. And then our second segment will be Q&A. And we're going to go around the horn and make sure that everybody gets a chance to ask their questions. We'll be able to unmute you and you'll be able to ask it directly. If that's not your preference and you'd rather type your question into the chat, go ahead and do that. And if a question strikes you while the conversation is going on, drop it in the chat as well, and we'll make sure that we come around to it. But you're going to have plenty of time to ask our panel of speakers specific questions relating to your business or your industry. A little bit of housekeeping. I will serve as your facilitator today. My colleague, Mackenzie Reinhold, is on Zoom, and she is able to help you if you're having any technology issues. My colleague, Ori St. Germain, is on backup slides in case we have any technology challenges. And our Vice President for Membership, Rebecca Dickinson, is going to keep her eye on the chat box and make sure we answer your questions and help me facilitate this discussion. So each of you are going to be muted throughout the meeting. I'll invite you to unmute yourself during the segment when we are calling on you to ask your questions. Again, please use that chat. Type in your comments or your affirmations or your aha moments or things you want to make sure that we and the group get to see, but we are going to make sure again that you guys get a chance to ask your questions. So let's begin, but with one more little thing. It would help me and our facilitators, if you see where your name is, if you would change your name to rename yourself to add your organization. So some of you, it just says, Bob's iPhone. So if you'd rename yourself, if you would. So there's these three little dots at the top right corner of your Zoom image, of your image, and you can hit rename and please your name and the organization that you are with, if possible. We are recording today's session. It's going to help us with note taking. And for those who are unable to attend that we want to share this with. Okay, let me introduce Clinton Aziz. He is the System Vice President of Supply Chain at UNC Health. Clinton, it is great to have you to bring welcome. Please share with us some of the information you have, and then we will introduce the rest of your team. Thanks.
Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. Pleasure to be here today. Everyone hear me okay? Thumbs up? All right, good. Got a head nod and a thumbs up. Good. So good to be here today. Again, my name is Clinton Aziz, and I serve as System Vice President of Supply Chain Operations for UNC Health. And in my role, what that includes is all the things related to supply chain activities. That includes contracting and procurement, decision support and analytics. We also have a significant distribution center for supplies and equipment out of Durham that supports our hospitals across the state. And so under my purview are all those things that make the products and goods and services come in and out of our health system. I have UNC Health, just as a kind of a overview. UNC Health is a health system that has hospitals from the west to the east and north to the south across the state. I know everyone is very familiar with Chapel Hill, but we also have over 150 kind of ambulatory and kind of ancillary institutions as well, which my team in supply chain supports. And we talk about procurement and we talk about contracting to kind of give you a bit of context of what our world consists of. We are responsible for procurement of all goods and services. I like to say from light bulbs to lasers. And we manage about over $3 billion of non-labor procurement types of activity. So there's a myriad of categories that we cover there. And the members of my team that you have on the call are some of the key influencers and executors of our procurement and contracting strategy. So to that point, I think I'll hand it over to Omar.
Thank you, Clinton. So we started our supply chain diversity program really in March. And like Clinton said, we have the core members of our team on this meeting. Tamika Goddard and Becky DeMint are in our purchasing department. And then of course, Clinton is the leader of our supply chain department. But we wanted to really start this program to work with various businesses in the community and really not just purchase things from them or have them provide services, but really partner with them. And this is not an initiative, because in my mind, an initiative has a beginning and an end. This is really a program. And so our goal is to, although it is very early in the program, our goal is to grow the program and really work with our local businesses to establish an organizational infrastructure with the businesses and UNC Health. And UNC Health, this is something that we're really committed to. It's in various discussions and various meetings that we really focus on this topic in supplier diversity. So again, we're early in the program. Our next steps continue to work with businesses and figure out ways to work with local businesses. We're going to be creating a diversity website that vendors and suppliers can go to and get information and sign up, as well as other engagements in the community in the future. So, you know, we really look forward to working with you all. We really would like that engagement and really figuring out how we can progress and work together. I'm going to toss it over to our purchasing team. I'm sorry, I'm going to toss it back over to Clinton, and he'll talk a little bit about contracting and sourcing.
Thank you. So let's talk a little bit about how we manage our business. And as the slide states here, while we have many aspects of contracting and sourcing, you know, we recognize that all supplier partners, all vendor partners are not created equal. And so we offer a bit of, I should say, flexibility in terms of the way we engage our contracts, our sourcing strategies. But some of the categories that, again, as I mentioned before, that we tackle and procure around our services, which is, you know, anything from catering, courier services, construction, landscaping. We also, obviously, we're healthcare, so we do a lot with supplies and equipment. But for all intents and purposes, you know, our organization is a reflection of the healthcare industry, which is evolving all the time. There's different dynamics and there's different strategies that our organization may deploy to support our patient population in one region of the state or, you know, somewhere in the triangle or otherwise. And so when those strategies evolve, so do our categories of procurement and sourcing. And this is the team that helps develop those inroads and those strategies to allow those programs to come into the organization in the proper way. Next slide. Over to you, Tamika.
Greetings, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. As Omar and Clinton stated, this is we are just starting this program, and thank you so much for joining us. We are going to give you guys some contact information where you can share a little bit more about your business. You can share some brochures, different things about your business with us. And once you share that information with us, what we're going to do, we're going to evaluate our needs. We're going to review your information about your business, evaluate the needs, the current needs, and also our current opportunities. We do have a vendor registration process once we take a look at your business and we make an agreement with you to start doing business with you, what will happen, the next phase will be, we will send you out a vendor registration form, and you will complete that form along with sending us your W-9. And what UNC do when we have new vendors coming on board, we have a vendor vetting process. And we do this vetting process through government sanctioned websites. And a couple of the government sanctioned websites is shown here. And what we do with that, we look at these websites and we just check for things like fraud, treason, different things like that, just to make sure that we vet out your business. After we do that, we will then set up your business in our system and add your company as one of our vendors. And once we do that, then we will start doing business with your company. That's where we'll go in and we'll start actually procuring and making purchases or agreeing to different services with your company. Again, we're gonna provide you guys some contact information so that you can share that with us. And we'll go a little bit more in detail on the process and processes with you at that time. Again, we really appreciate you guys coming and joining us today. And at this time, we're gonna open it up for any questions or anything that you may have from our team.
Tamika, I have a few questions regarding this. I'm going to guess that 90% of the people on this call have never registered with SAM or OIG or don't even know what those are. Must they register there also? Because if you're going to go check on them there, but they are not registered there, how will you find them?
So this is somewhere so with these companies, what it is, if you have an exclusion, if you have been if you have been in fraud or treason or anything like that, and you've been reported to the government, that's how your business will end up on this list. It's multiple different exclusions that if your company is involved in any of these things with the government, that is how you end up on these websites. It's not nothing you actually go in and register for.
Excellent. I have heard, I know that like when grants come in from the state, they have often required the registrant to go to that SAM office. We are lucky we have other resources on this call. Latasha Besgatti is someone who I'm going to introduce in just a moment, who coaches small businesses on doing business with the state and with the hospital. So Latasha, heads up, I may have some questions for you in a moment. May I also ask, many of our businesses are not, their corporate form, it may be an LLC or a sole proprietorship, in which case they may not have W-9 forms. They would file a different form with you. Is W-9 required from you all in order to do vendor registration, or are there other forms that they can attest to their business incorporation? I'll ask that to the whole group. It doesn't need to just be to you.
So yeah, I'll take that, team. So when there isn't, what we're really looking for is the recognition of the business entity, the tax ID, whatever designation that is. So we can be flexible there. We may have that, they may delay a little bit of the review process, especially within our internal financial controls. But again, W-9 might not be the form, but again, we're really looking for the official designation of the business. And I think we can certainly be flexible there.
Excellent. I interrupted before you shared your final slide, I reckon. So let's put that other slide up there on people's contact. And then while we've got that set of folks, Mackenzie, would you maybe spotlight some of the other members of their team? And one of the questions we get from small businesses is, do they have to be able to produce things in large quantity, right? Do they need to have the ability to water all of the plants in the hospitals, all 150 locations, or do you do independent and small contracts for small facilities?
I'll take that one as well, team. We're flexible there also. It's not, we're not always pursuing, regardless of the scale of our organization, we're not always pursuing system level agreements. We understand that some services in particular are going to be very regional specific. I think of landscaping, for example. It's a great one. That's very regional specific. We don't have a landscaper taking care of our Rex Hospital in Raleigh, the same one that takes care of Caldwell in Lenore. So, those things are flexible. The other part, and you actually really good question about producing on a large scale. As we watch the news every day, and, never thought I'd be this popular as a supply chain guy, but we are very popular. But the reality is resilience and sustainability are very important to us. One of the questions, as Samika mentioned on the slide she presented, was about vetting the organizations and understanding your product. We're really focused on resilience and sustainability of our vendor partners. And so while you may not need to produce something on a large scale, if you can at least prove to us in some form or fashion that you have a sustainable sourcing chain or some level of resilience baked into your program or your service offering or your products, there's always a clearer path. But resilience is very important to us, especially in this day and age.
At the beginning, we talked about diversity. When I met with you all, your interest in diversity of your supplier is broad, but specifically we used to talk about what Hub is to folks who don't normally participate in that. And then you had also expressed not only a concentration on Hub, but engagement with local businesses, even if they were not defined as Hub Enterprise. But let's talk Hub just for a second. Would you help share with the group? I can Google the exact list, but it's veteran, minority, disability, female. What are some of the other categories of enterprise?
So this is Omar. There's a pretty extensive list. So like you said, we have Asian American owned, American Indian owned, Black owned, Hispanic, disabled, disadvantaged, female owned, LGBT, small businesses, and veteran owned. So there's a few different distinctions, and it's important to go ahead and register and become certified with the state so that designation is official. And it's not just something that you say, well, I'm a woman-owned business. However, the state has to recognize that as well.
Excellent. I want to make sure you did get to all. Is there any slides past this one? Or is this the last one? I didn't want to interrupt with questions until we're done.
It is. Go ahead.
Perfect.
Next slide. And we, again, with our contact information here that we provided for everyone, we just ask that when you do send your information that you put supply diversity in that subject field so that it can route to the appropriate person to actually review their information.
Fabulous, Tamika. So with Rebecca, would you drop that email address, purchase@unchealth.unc.edu? Let's put that in the chat with the supplier diversity. And then we're going to unshare your slides, if you would, Omar, so we can all see each other. And Mackenzie, we can unhighlight them, and we can just see all of us as maybe one big Brady Bunch setup. Actually, this setup is good as well. Thank you. All right, now let's see what questions folks have.
So, yeah, while we're quickly talking about Hub, before we move on from that conversation, Latasha had asked to clarify, are you using Hub to vet businesses?
Omar or?
Yep. So we're not using Hub necessarily to vet businesses. We'll do our due diligence on our side. Hub is really for the designation and certification, but we use other ways to vet businesses.
Let me introduce Latasha really quick. Latasha Best-Gaddy is a member of the Chamber. Her business is called Infinity Bridges, but her career prior to that, well, and it's sort of what she does now also, but before that worked at SBTDC, coaching small businesses and being successful. Now, one of her expertise is helping people do business with big business. She's also the chair of the Black Business Alliance. Latasha, will you say hello and then maybe share some of the lessons that you've seen as folks try to gear up to do business with major suppliers?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. I was really just coming as an observer, but I should have known that Aaron was going to call on me. Just wanted to kind of say thank you to UNC Health for participating in this and being able to share and what you're continuing to build out. I just wanted to add in terms of what Tamika was saying in terms of SAM. So companies do need to create a SAM ID. And even before you create the SAM ID, you need to create a DUNS. So you start with DUNS, and then the second step is to then create a SAM, so that then when you're going, when UNC Health is going to actually vet or look at your business, that the information is already created. So in addition to seeing if there's anything unethical or any, things that have been done, there's some positive side that would also need to be reported that the company will need to do on the front end. So I do want to just kind of add that the company will need to create a SAM account in order to get there. There's actually a SAM's number. But
can I stop you right there, Latasha, 1 second? So this is a collaborative conversation. So in Latasha's experience, when she's trying to help someone do business with the university or with the state, that has been the requirement. Let me just check in. Is anything different about the hospital that SAMs would not be a required number? Tamika, you sort of said you go looking at the SAM to see if they've done anything wrong, but Latasha's experience has been that they've got to go there themselves first.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Yes, on our end for UNC, we actually look at a large variety of sanctioned websites. And what we're looking for on our end, we're looking for those exclusions. So that's specifically what UNC is looking at. We're just trying to vet to make sure that there are no exclusions that the business have to where they would not qualify to do business with UNC Health.
Perfect. So UNC Health specific, some of what we want to share with you here, doing business with the state, UNC Healthcare operates maybe a little bit differently. It is a smart idea, as Latasha says, to investigate getting your DUNS, DUNS information in order and your SAM registration. We've done it as a chamber. It's not difficult to go and get that process done.
Yep. And DUNS stand for Dun and Bradstreet. Sorry to use acronyms around this. And
any other, do you have, as you've helped on the small business side, Latasha, any advice as folks are preparing to engage with our healthcare system?
Sure. So one of the things that I think is really key is capacity. So I know you gave the example around, I think it was the landscaping business. And so while you may not have to water all 50, but you still need to be able to have the capacity to water whatever is in the contract and be able to make sure you meet that. And so capacity for a business may mean time. It also may mean money if there's certain equipment that you're doing as supplies. It also may mean reporting requirements and things of that nature. So there's a lot of kind of other things. Sometimes people just think capacity means people, meaning yourself, but also it also means, are you able to meet the reporting requirements? Do you have the technology? Do you have everything to interface with UNC's health system? And so being able to make sure you have technology and all the other things that go along with it. So I think that's really key as well.
Excellent. What we're hearing from UNC Health, and again, I also am grateful to Mika, Omar, the rest of your team, Clint, for being here with us, is that you guys are willing to change how you've done business in the past to make it easier, that you realize you can't grow the diversity of who you work with if it was like it used to be. And some of the things that we had talked about, one of the things I had said to you is, small business sometimes can't wait 90 days to get paid. And you guys, I think what you said was, then we'll write into the contract that you get paid in whatever it is, 30 days, or 25 days. Can you talk about some of the other things at UNC Health that you guys are doing to improve your ability to work with small business?
Yeah, Aaron, I'll take that for UNC Health. So yeah, correct. We talked about payment terms. We understand there's a different dynamic with some of our diverse supplier partners that we would align with in terms of cash flow. So again, this goes back to my comments. You know, we can be as flexible as we need to in terms of contracting, sourcing categories. But Natasha mentioned something that kind of ties into another comment that I made: capacity. I blend that in with resilience and sustainability. Those are non-negotiables, if you will, because we cannot compromise quality service or quality outputs. Some of the other things that we consider is cost, right? Because we understand that this is a strategic imperative that requires us to be very intentional and deliberate. And while you might not always be the lowest cost option, I want to call this out in particular, but if there's value there, again, the end game is value. If we're able to find sustainable value with a partnership with you, or it supports a different area of our community or our mission of the organization, there's some nuances there that we're willing to accept, in comparison to how we kind of deal with big business, a Medtronic, or I'll just throw out there a Google or something. So there's definitely flexibility there, but we really want to be focused on value. Does that make sense to everyone?
It does. The question Terry asked this question, I'll ask it out loud. Can you help us try on in our minds the kind of things that you contract and buy? You said from light bulbs to lasers, but as I look around who's here, we've got a company that does disaster response when you've had a fire or mold or a crisis. We've got restaurants. We've got people who do coaching and training. We've got interior designers. We've got people who sell branded materials and merchandise. Can you help us think of some more of the sorts of things? I guess it's everything, right? What are some examples of?
Yeah, all those fall into play, Aaron, and on everyone else on the panel. Everything falls into play. I'll call out some more. So let's talk laundry services, landscaping. We were doing some analysis as we ramping up our strategy here. We have quite a bit of a spend already in partnership with diverse marketing agencies. Restaurants, for sure, we love to eat, especially in supply chain. We love to eat. So, catering and those kind of things are definitely options. You mentioned the disaster recovery. Those are the types of services. Hey, if we need them, we need them. Now we have property managers for many of our entities. But again, if there's an opportunity there that presents and we have an emergent need, having someone in our portfolio that can supply or satisfy a need, we're definitely there. Facilities management is a big one, whether it be contractors, whether it be, general contractors, whether it be locksmiths, material suppliers, maybe distributors, small distributors like MROs, manufacturing type of things. We're open to all of those. We procure all those flavors.
And some of it, I imagine, comes into your organization. Some of the people here would, do you also contract, like their Atma Hotel Group is on this call, you would engage in a contract to negotiate pricing for when you were bringing in contractors, when you were bringing in people to train you on Epic. Is that also
Sure.
the sorts of contracts you would engage?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, right now we have contracts with hotels in our regions, for, employees or visitors, patients, you name it. So it's definitely in the wheelhouse as a potential opportunity.
Awesome. Terry, I'm actually going to call on you to describe, if you're willing to unmute yourself, describe your business. And then if you have any more questions that you want to ask these folks with white space. Is Terry there?
How are you?
Hello.
Thank
Will you?
you. Good morning. I was just looking, when you're willing to work with smaller businesses, and I kind of immediately did that, focusing on maybe individual departments or certain things that were going on. Do you all ever need branding, marketing type services as well? Sort of to like what Aaron was getting at, where you're talking about bringing in, folks to do landscaping and things. The way we
Yes.
operate, we're sort of like we partner with people as their marketing and branding services without you having to hire somebody to be in-house, so to speak.
Yeah. So are we talking about like, polo shirts with our monogram or something on there, that kind of thing? Or is that what we're talking about?
It can be any of those kind of things. It can be more along the line of branding and marketing, and how you would want to maybe do some social media work, or some local, even print, or even like Chapel Borough with the radio kind of thing, that kind of thing, to say this department is new, or we're doing these kinds of things. It would be more pinpoint to the local community, including tchotchkes or whatever, but we're looking more at the branding.
100% on the branding side for sure. And that's what I was mentioning. That's what I made reference to in the marketing space. We actually do very well there right now in terms of diversity. So yeah, definitely that's in our purview.
Excellent.
Great.
Thank you
Monica,
so much.
it's good to see you. Monica, will you put a question in regarding catering? Do you want to ask that question out loud? Introduce your business.
First, thank you so much for organizing this. I'm so excited to be here. We have been talking about how to get in front of UNC Health for so long. UNC, the school, we just send people out with business cards and catering brochures, but you can't really do that at the hospital. So I just want to thank everybody from supply chain that's come today and talked to us. So I think I got the answer to my question. So of course, we're a small brew pub located just between Cat's Cradle and Amante's in downtown Carborough. And if I understood what I heard, we would go ahead and get into the vendor system, and departments that are looking for catering would go to that system to select from the different vendors that UNC Supply has contracted with. And then that's how we would get contacted. Is that right?
Conceptually, yes. Conceptually, yes. A little more intricate behind the scenes. We won't bother with the sausage making, but 100% yes. That's what our direction would be.
All right, because we're in a unique situation where the ownership structure is investors that would not identify as historically marginalized, but our business model, those of us that actually run the business, do so in a way that we think would very much align with DEI goals, and especially around sustainability. So I am, again, don't want to take up too much time, super excited to meet you guys, and really looking forward to getting into that vendor system. Thanks.
Awesome.
Thank you for being here.
I see a question from Stretch Zone, and then in my screen, I see Cat at Camp Gladiator. So it says UNC Health is the question. Is there a conflict of interest if you're going to work with health-related vendors, or might you hire an outside contractor to work with staff on their lunch hour to do, I don't know, athletic events in your outside spaces? That would be Camp Gladiator. I think of them as that, or the folks at Stretch Zone contracting with them. Who's here from Stretch?
That's an interesting one there. And I think that, I look at this a little, I look at sourcing and vendor partnerships a little different. I think, again, where do they fit into our organizational strategies? And when I think of something like that, I would, of that organization, what I would like to do is, get a better understanding of what the offering is. And perhaps, it's a conversation with our human resource department and say, hey, look, you got an offering here for employee wellness that maybe we should consider, as we try to promote, better, proactive health measures and total wellness of our stakeholders, but again, I very few things I don't think cannot fit into our organization. It's just about strategically where we can align the opportunity.
And to repeat to those on the call in case you joined late, the recommendation right now is that you would send an email, and Rebecca, if you'd repost it in the chat, there's an email that you would send it to. You'd write supplier diversity in the subject line, and you would, I guess, introduce yourself, describe your organization, describe the services that you have to offer, and make that initial introduction. And then Clinton, should they expect that your team, that's how we begin that engagement?
Yes, that's definitely how we will begin the engagement. But I think it's only fair also, and I want to make sure I call this out in terms of expectations of turnaround times. So while we ask that you definitely engage us, please engage us in the email, introduce yourself. What we do need to go through is our vetting cycle, and we will need time to understand where we plug you guys into in terms of a department or a strategy, okay? And what we're asking for is patience there. I think what you should expect is, number one, at least a response acknowledgement within 48 hours, okay, that we received it. But in terms of more tangible actions and scheduling, expect that to come out, maybe 2 or 3 weeks out. Again, we have to just run through our processes, and we want to make sure that we are aligning you with the right segment of our business. We don't want to waste your time. We want to align you with the right segment of our business, and we just I just want to make sure that we kind of set that expectation. So it's probably going to be that initial touch point with, in a quicker turnaround time, but we're going to need that runway 2 or 3 weeks to get back to you with some more tangible engagement. Is that fair for everyone to understand?
I think that is fair. Rudy's got a question that others may have as well, and that is regarding this marketing, publicity, media for your outbound. Where's the proper contact? They are I don't know, they might run a radio station, have a local newspaper, or have a way to help market. Is that centralized somewhere else, or is that
for the most part that's centralized in our marketing department? We have a very comprehensive team there, digital marketing and branding. There's a team that we would connect you with to understand if there's an opportunity there.
Perfect, Rudy. Hopefully that answers your question. A question I get a lot is, how do local businesses market to your departments? If they are trying, is it all through a centralized funnel, or can they reach out to the UNC Dialysis or the Spine Center or Chatham Hospital and talk directly with them about what their needs are on site?
Generally speaking, we don't encourage direct contact with our departments. Essentially what happens is that comes back around to us anyway, because our stakeholders understand that we have a vetting process and vendors have to be approved. So the best path is to, again, introduce yourselves, engage through supply chain, and we will kind of be your marketing firm for you internally to say we have some diversity or a new business partner offering that we would actually consider. And then we give them an opportunity to engage directly at that juncture.
Got it. Judy, you had a question. Do you want to, Judy Miller, if you want to unmute yourself and ask it about volume, quality, goggles, etc. The question, I'll read it out loud if she's not able, is what is your volume need for the highest quality face shields, goggles, PPE through the UNC system?
Okay, I unmuted myself.
Okay, so, there you go. Go ahead, Judy.
Hi, Aaron.
Good to see you.
You too. Yes, I work with a company that I represent them in various places that is part of the supply chain for high quality PPE, goggles, and face shields. And I was wondering what the volume is for UNC Medical throughout the state, and whether this would be a good place to offer that product.
Yeah, good question. In appropriate category, obviously. Volume is we manage and monitor volume on a very dynamic way. It's very cyclical. and we would definitely have to get a better understanding of where we are today with our forecast. Just because of where the pandemic is today and on the decline, it's one of those PPE and critical supply categories are just one of those that we're cautious about, making sure that we don't become overzealous with it at this juncture. So, I mean, we can definitely have a conversation about it. And again, this would be another part of the vetting conversation is we will convey to you what our demand is. Can you support it again with the quality product? But we would definitely want to provide that in an introduction or an assessment conversation.
Good, because our ability to provide into the millions, but of product, but we don't know what the need is. But when this thing came up, I realized I am a supplier of that. I represent suppliers. I said, oh, I never thought about, contacting you all, but I think pricing and value would be, and capacity, and I'm local, would be great for you. So we'll pursue it. Thank you.
Judy, I'm very glad that you joined this call. There was a question about whether once people register with you, whether there's an annual re-registry process or an annual follow-up, or once registered with you as a vendor, is it evergreen?
Yeah, well, it's a good question, and I won't call it evergreen, but it's really contingent on your contract terms. Once you're in our vendor system, in the literal sense, you're in our vendor system, but we manage our relationships through contract terms. So, if your contract term is for 2 or 3 years, consider that's what it is. We start looking at the extension of the relationship as we get to term. But in that cycle, the expectation would be some level of quarterly business engagement. Let's make sure that everybody's meeting expectations of value and deliverables. But that's essentially how that works.
Awesome. Rebecca, I'm going to call on you in a minute for some questions that folks have been sending directly to you, but I want to first go to our friends, Kristen at the Parlor at Man's Chapel. Do you want to ask your question directly, or should I read it? I'll give you a second to unmute.
Hi there, thank you so much. I'm Kristen, the venue director at the Parlor at Man's Chapel. We're just about 10 to 15 minutes from UNC and UNC Health. I was just wondering if the purchasing department is the right department for us to get in front of for selling meeting space, conferences, celebrations like retirements or new incoming management or employees or whatever. Is this the right place for me?
Yeah, I think this is the place to start for sure. And again, I'll reiterate my point. We kind of are the center, and we kind of distribute out that way, because what happens is everything comes back to us, whether for a PO or a contract, and we own the vendor vetting component. So this is the best place to start. And again, our commitment is once we have identified you, we work with our colleagues in our health system to say, here we have an opportunity. Does this make sense? Does this satisfy a need?
Great. That's
Kristen,
great.
super great question. We got the same question from our friends at Farrington, others that have asked. So starting with you, but I imagine, and I know you want to discourage them from having independent conversations with different departments, but is it not? Would it be helpful if they did both? That they talk to you, but also the person who is retiring about where they want to have their party, or also with the hospital that is closest to them?
Yeah, Tamika, you're going to say something?
Yes, I was going to say that when you start through us, we're the central point of contact. So once we get that information, we're going to put you in contact with the right people. We're going to make sure you get in front of the right people. And again, we do not encourage for you all to actually go out to the different departments. As Clinton stated, we are going to get you to the right people. So start with that purchasing email communication and give us an opportunity to evaluate your company, evaluate the need, and do our checklist. And we're going to make sure that your business get in front of the right group of individuals so that we can start doing business with you all.
Awesome. Tamika, that was fabulous and super helpful. Rebecca, what questions have come to you?
Actually, I'd like to let Tom Proctor, if you don't mind, with Vacuum Cleaner Hospital, ask his question with his hand raised.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Tom?
Thank you. Two questions, actually. I don't know if you're aware of this, Clinton, but we've been around for 35 years, but we sell vacuums as well as repairs. So if I wanted to know what you're currently using in your vacuum cleaner fleet, would that be information you can provide just so I can do a proposal once I get all signed up and do all that sort of thing? So is it confidential, or do you kind of say what you've been using and any current needs, but it helps us to know what you're currently using, for example.
Yeah, Tom, good question. And, again, when it comes to this particular category, there's a bit of a variable there that we have to consider. And then a lot of our hospitals have service providers that bring their own equipment.
Right.
And because of that, we don't own the asset, the vacuums, floor scrubbers, et cetera. So because we don't own that, most of those assets that the opportunities there are subjective to what those environments look like.
Gotcha. So you don't have any housekeeping using your own equipment?
Well, again, no, I'm not saying that in a finite way. What I'm saying is that we have to vet that particular component to understand what the opportunity looks like. I'm just being very transparent. Most of our hospitals have a service provider that, with their service comes their assets, and a lot of that. And while there might be some exceptions, maybe even some of our, ancillary administrative facilities, for example, maybe there's some opportunities but we just have to vet the current state to understand where there's some opportunity there.
And then the second question was, if we sell a cleaning chemical, and I won't even mention it because nobody's heard of it and they don't have a good website. But if I wanted to give a demonstration to someone over at UNC Hospital, is that something that I just asked to arrange a time to show something, if you'd even consider it, because it's environmentally friendly and doesn't have any odor and all that sort of thing. But anyway, is that something that you can do a demonstration? I know you can't commit to anything before you see it.
Yeah, well, that's a great point, and it goes back to my comment about the non-negotiables of quality. And again, we're dealing with patients and lives here every day, so we definitely would want to vet. Maybe we're bringing our infection control, obviously our EVS expert as subject matter experts to understand if it makes sense. So we would definitely need to do that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I understand. The last thing I'll just say is that it is used in various hospitals in Boston, so it does have some track record of being used in other states. So that's all. That's all I wanted to say. So, okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Tom. What Tom said and what's appeared in a few of the other questions about how do you show your product to the hospital? How can you bring your free food to they try it and like it? It had me think about whether there's the reverse version of this, where the vendors all set up, local vendors set up to show their wares, and you bring all your purchasing people to walk around and see his cleaning supply and eat their food and check out their thing and see their brochures. Rather than it all comes into you, would there be advantage to setting up a thing where you guys come out to meet with them in an efficient way, get people together?
Yeah, it's a great idea. I think it's something that I would be open to considering. I'm Tamika and Becky and Omar. I think it's something we should take a step back and see if we can think something through.
Awesome. Rebecca, what other questions do you have?
We have one more question focused on IT support, and if you do all that internally, or if there's a window for opportunity to help, and then similarly about internet and what provides, if someone provides internet, how they might be able to work with you.
Yeah, technology is a tough one in those categories that you referenced, because we have very robust relationships that are in place right now. I just want to be very transparent about that. Those are two tough categories, our provider as well as a service provider. But again, if there's something that you want us to consider, I wouldn't mind, taking a look at it and engaging with, our ISD colleagues to see if there's an opportunity there. But that's a really tough one. That's a very mature category. Those are very mature categories for us.
Priscilla, I see a question. Would it be possible to invite Martin King? And then I see Manesh also. So Priscilla's question is about Atma Hotel Group. How do we get your team offsite to invite them to experience an offsite vendor? They have the Sheraton, for example. Manesh, do you want to ask, or Priscilla ask that question out loud?
Yes, thank you guys for putting this together. We appreciate it. Our question is, we have several hotels in Chapel Hill, and we've been doing business with the hospital. But recently we purchased the Sheraton, which has convention space, meeting space, catering services. How could we get the hospital involved in a joint connection with the Sheraton and do a vendor fair expo, and have also folks from the hospital show up to these fair and get introduced to different vendors in their local market?
Very good question. And I think it's a matter of coordination, quite frankly. I put it this way, now that we are kind of getting to some level of our new normal, outside of the pandemic, because that's what we've been laser focused on for 2 years.
Sure.
I think that those types of conversations can be considered going forward. But I think it's a matter of coordination, because we know that, you guys are familiar with UNC Health. We're in the community doing those types of things anyway. I think it's just a matter of awareness and coordination to see if there's an opportunity there.
Thank you.
Artem, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, so as everybody else has said, thank you for doing this, right? I'm sure everybody has the same feeling as me that working with UNC could be huge, right? So my question is, well, before I ask my question, I own the local franchise for Advanaclean. Amongst other things, we do duct cleaning and dry vent cleaning, right? I have worked with some other hospitals to do their duct cleaning, and it turns into quite a project. What are your current needs, both at the hospital and some of your outpatient clinics, for duct cleaning services on your HVACs? And also, if you're doing your laundry in-house, is a dryer vent cleaning a need for you as well?
Okay. So I'll start with in the rears here. So laundry is outsourced. We don't have on-site facilities. We got 15 hospitals here. So I want to make sure that's all inclusive of running that in my head, buddy. So for all intents and purposes, our laundry services are out-serviced. I don't see anywhere in my head where we have any in-house facilities. In terms of HVAC, duct cleaning, again, as I mentioned to the other individual that mentioned something similar, we have property management companies that manage those aspects of the physical plant. And again, those relationships, we would have to definitely take a look to see if there's an opportunity there, because obviously those are aspects of our facilities that we have to keep protected and with the proper partners. So I can't speak to what the opportunity looks like today because of that dynamic.
Understood. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Natasha, you had a question. You were asking to clarify the difference between a PO and a contract. You want to ask your question specifically?
Sure. Clinton had mentioned if the opportunity comes through a PO, and I'm assuming that's purchase order versus an actual contract. And I know typically when working with others, I've seen that those are two different types of ways that entrepreneurs can partner. So a PO is typically a direct assignment versus a contract goes through maybe a bidding process. So I wanted to just get a clarity on that as well. And then I'm gonna just ask my second one, which was, what about if someone, because I was listening, if they wanted to be a subcontractor or a sub vendor with some of your major vendors, specifically around that technology. So if any of those companies, do you help connect them if they wanted to be a sub vendor with your main primary contractors?
Okay. Tamika, why don't you take the PO question, and then or Becky, whichever, and then I'll take the contract question, and then I'll also the subcontractor question.
Okay, so our PO process, we do require a purchase order. Our purchase order is a legal binding agreement, and our purchase order actually come with terms and conditions. The difference in a purchase order in a contract will be we do actually go out and negotiate a contract and look at terms and conditions and set a specific term. But also, in addition to having that contract, you still will get a purchase order, because all of our business we do with various business, we have it put on a purchase order, because that's the way that you're going to get paid when you actually send us an invoice. We require that all of our invoices that come through have a purchase order number. So the contract piece will be something that we negotiate with you with some terms and conditions, and it will be for a specific amount of time, right? But in addition to that, you get a purchase order that pairs with that particular contract. Now, if it's a one-time business we're doing with you, something like catering one time or a one-time business transaction, you would just simply get a purchase order. It wouldn't be a typed up, written out contract. So I hope that helps explain that piece.
Sure, I'm gonna just restate what I heard just to make sure. So there are two ways. So everything does include a purchase order. In one way, if it's just a one-time service, sent as an example, that catering that you mentioned, then that may be a purchase order with a specific amount, which is, I mean, and all of it is, a type of a contract, but it's a one type of exchange between the business owner and UNC Health for that one moment. Sometimes the contracts are a longer term engagement. And so there is a purchase order involved in that, as well as a contract with the stipulations. And all of those are needed in order to get invoiced and paid. Did I restate that correctly?
Yes, you did.
Okay, thank you.
Natasha, let me add a little more context to the contracting component. The contract also, especially, I think Aaron mentioned this, there are some, because we're, just the nature of our industry, there are regulatory components that are dependent on the product, good, or the service that you are offering that has to be included in the contract. So the contract speaks to things like insurance, indemnification, maybe service level SLAs or something like that. Rate sheets, cybersecurity, big on our contracts, especially if we start talking about technology. MSDS, with the requirements there around reporting on, hazardous materials. So, the contract includes those level of levers to govern the partnership with us, in addition to the terms that Tamika mentioned. And I think that's also the delineation there that we want to be mindful of against the PO versus a PO.
And one last question just around that, because is a PO, since that is maybe a one-time, is there a certain dollar limit? I know I do some work with city agencies, and for POs, there's a certain dollar limit or parameters around that, versus contracts are typically larger dollar amounts.
No, there's no dollar limit for our PO process. And again, if we actually type up a contract and we agree to a contract with you, you still will get a purchase order for that particular contract.
Good, thank you.
And I want to also just state that obtaining the purchase order is very important in our business, because that is the way that you are going to get paid. all of our invoices, we could require a purchase order number beyond those invoices in order for you to actually get paid.
You had mentioned insurance in the response to Latasha's question. What are the requirements and do they flex depending on what it is you're getting from the vendor?
It does flex. The very simple, straightforward answer is it flexes based on the good or the service, but also the risk of the category. And so, you know, there's certain, and that we have our legal team really guides us through, you know, what are the assurance requirements for certain services. And we sometimes there's a scale there, an algorithm that we kind of bake that in, again, based on the service, the spend, and the impact on the organization.
Excellent. I'm reminded when you answer that of a conversation I had with Latasha once, and it went a little bit like this. I'll make it, I'm gonna exaggerate it slightly, but a small business says, I'm so excited to do business with the hospital. And the question is, well, are you incorporated? And they're like, well, not really. I'm like, do you have any insurance? I'm like, no, I don't have any of that either. Have you done a P&L lately? No. Okay, well, part of our job is, well, we've got to get our stuff in order, y'all, in order to be ready for them. If they're going to throw the ball at us, we got to have a glove to catch it. So making sure that you are working with the SBTDC, SCORE, Latasha, community college, if there's some stuff you need to do to get your business in order, so that if once you've sent this introductory email and they write you back and they say, we're so excited, and then it turns out that you're not prepared, if that is the case, do reach out to us and others. There's lots of organizations that can provide you some technical support to get in order. Let me go, Tony, if you are there, I'm going to ask Tony Jordan posted a question. It was about supporting the hospital's expansion and construction. If Brian, you might be able to ask Tony's question in a similarly related, I think it is it the right place to talk to y'all about being a contractor and helping you build your stuff as you grow, or does that go better through Simon's office or the folks in construction?
Yeah, Simon sounds like somebody knows Mr. George. So yeah, Simon is the exception. We really do very little on the procurement side of contracting for construction. Very little there. We deal with the equipment on the, that's kind of, inside the building. He does the GCs, raw materials, etc. That's the best path. However, if you need some help, that's my buddy. He's on speed dial.
I know Simon George is a great guy. So Clinton can help you if Simon's not returning your phone calls. Did you just hear Clinton promise to help make that happen?
Hey, thank you for that response. Tony had to step out. So I appreciate you calling attention to that, Aaron, and Clinton, thank you for the response. And we'll continue to hit Simon up.
I will edit
he's
that
the guy.
We will edit that promise out of the recording before we publish it.
We'll just commit Omar Tamika to it, not Clinton.
We'll do a voiceover making sure that is who promised to do the follow-up. There is a question about how to work with your employees. I'm going to say that across lots of different ways. We have folks that want to change their oil while their car is parked in the parking lot, or to detail their vehicle, or to talk to them about doing their dry cleaning. Or, but it could also be connecting with your executives to do coaching and support, or having conversations with your nurses about dealing with stress. Some of that I imagine is through you all in HR. And then some of it is, so let's do those in two different orders. If they want to work with your employees formally, the question came to me on resiliency and surviving this sort of stressful situation. Does that go through you or HR?
Again, we just want to reiterate, we caution, again, we just called out the primary exception being construction. But when it comes to these types of services in alignment with our employees, it is best that you shepherd that through us, and we'll get it in front of our HR colleagues. They have the glide path and the insights into those types of strategies. And I think that, again, we can be a great conduit to give them options in terms of opportunities there to partner with you guys. But again, I would encourage you guys to come through us. And again, I'll be very transparent with you. It's going to come back to us anyway. So save yourself a step and be more efficient and just start with us.
Dr. Jeff, Patrick, is that the answer? Do you want to ask any more about this question? Introduce yourself.
Yeah, so hi everybody, my name is Dr. Patrick Jeffs. I've been in Chapel Hill for about 12 years. My wife and I owned NC Center for Resiliency, which was a mental health clinic here in town. We had a successful exit in 2020, but a couple of years before our exit, I started doing workplace resiliency, systemic workplace resiliency. I've done a lot of work with the chamber as well. And over the last 2 years, especially in the pandemic, have worked very closely with Duke Oncology and the North Carolina Community Health Center Association, just for a couple folks to create systemic resiliency within healthcare, and certainly helping folks through this really difficult time. And I've had an interesting go of connecting with individual departments within the UNC Health system, and then talking to some of the very higher ups, and sometimes it gets lost in how to best align those folks. But if reaching out to you all specifically through the procurement email is the best way to go, then that feels like a really good start. I feel like how you all have led this conversation through the lens of partnerships and really helping understand what y'all's needs are and how everybody on this call can help support you all in what you do, but also in those that you serve, feels like a really good way to move forward in all of this.
Excellent. What other questions Dr. Jeff, good to see you. I'm glad that you're here. What other questions do folks have for our guests? You put your hand up, you just unmute yourself and ask it if you wish.
Johnny McGee, are you here? Would you like to ask your question? Johnny was asking, and I'll see if I can.
He's in the waiting. Hold on, I'm gonna let him right back in.
He's coming.
He's probably gonna need a minute though once he's just returning.
Yeah, to give you a heads up, he's looking at supplemental insurance and how to connect with employees on those types of services and planning.
That's another one, tough one. I want to just be very transparent about that. That's a tough one. And we have some partnerships and some requirements with the state as well that, we've kind of looked at this in the very recent past, that's a tough category to kind of bring into the organization. And we have some long-term commitments there. So, I just want to be very transparent about that one. That's a tough one.
If Johnny, is it helpful for him to even reach out to that purchasing email and make sure that connection's there if the door should ever open in the future, even though it's a tough category now?
Yeah, and I think it's fair. That's fair. I don't want to discourage anyone. Okay, but I think that again, I like to manage expectations here. We will definitely get it in front of our HR team, but that's a long-term agreement that that's really new, and that's good. That's probably not going to be one that we realize any opportunity in the near future.
Thank you,
Clinton. I appreciate y'all. Clarity is our love language, and that you being clear on what is on the table and what is not on the table.
And we're gonna. That's how my team operates, folks. Look, we as I spoke at the top of the. That was a good comment. Clarity is my love language too. As I mentioned at the top of my introduction, we manage a significantly large book of business. We do not like to waste folks' times or ours, and we want to be good partners and keep the opportunities open there. But we're going to just kind of be very transparent and work with you wherever we can.
Our friends at Stretch Zone just posted a question. If they'd unmute themselves to ask it.
Sure. Hi, thank you for hosting this panel. This has been very informative. My name is Judith, and I want to get a sense. We'll go through the registration process, but I want to get an idea. Do you guys advocate on behalf of us as vendors to the potential end users of our services, or do they dictate who they prefer to work with? And do you have any say on their decisions or choices?
That's a good question. And it's really driven by the need. I think Tamika mentioned this in her slide. We determine our partnerships against what the organizational need is and value. And that is really driven by the expert, the business owner or the business unit owner. Now, our influence is around the business kind of construct of the business, where that's where we influence. And so some of the things that we've mentioned around exclusions, because of, questionable ethical behavior, meeting, requirements from a financial, from an organizational legal perspective, that's kind of where we come in, rates and terms, that's kind of where we influence the final decision.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What other questions do folks have?
Aaron, I have a question. I know they talked about once you send this email and they do their due diligence, is there any conversation or feedback of if they did submit to become a vendor and they're not quite ready to even refer back, as Aaron mentioned, whether it's to the chamber, to SBTDC, to SCORE, to the Small Business Center, for them to get those things in order? Because I also heard you say it's helpful or beneficial if they were also already hub certified. So if they had not done any of these things, is that communicated, or they just get something saying they're not qualified? They don't meet the criteria to be a vendor at this time.
Natasha, that's a good point and a fair ask. And I think that Becky and Tamika and Omar, I think we need to consider how we respond to give as much context as to why maybe they were not accepted for an opportunity, whether it is, construct as Natasha mentioned, or there's just not the opportunity right now. I think we want to be very deliberate around that in our response. So thank you for calling that out. And it's definitely something we will consider in our responses.
And there may be opportunity for even formal partnership. You guys are going to get an incredible amount of inbound from across the state with your 150 facilities, and you're going to meet a lot of not quite ready for prime time businesses. And if the Small Business Technology Development Center with UNC, if there's a referral relationship where you're gonna see them, but you're gonna maybe be able to also refer them to some resources to help them improve their likelihood of success. Maybe we'll talk offline about, are there resources we can help connect with so that folks can get a little stronger and come back with the opportunity to do business with you in the future.
And just kind of to add to that, in terms of SBTDC, the Small Business and Technology Development Center, they also have a government assistance, specific counselors to help kind of in this area. So I think that is a good referral pipeline that can help vendors get ready, or business owners get ready to become a vendor. So there are a lot of resources that are free to the entrepreneur. So they're not just consultants that do it, but there are some really great free resources that they could be connected to as well. So I like that idea, Aaron.
Excellent. And if you worry about free services and you don't think they're worth, but just know that that one is prepaid in your taxes. So you've actually paid for it, so you might as well go use it. Who else? I see other faces around here who've not yet spoken. Give everyone that opportunity. While y'all are thinking, let's reshare. Omar, could you reshare this slide with y'all's faces and titles and that email address where folks are to send maybe their introduction or their engagement with you? And then if you all would, maybe Team UNC Health, as we sort of conclude this, are there anything you want to underscore or to re-highlight the key things that you are looking for? You're going to get a bunch of inbound from us, right? But are there key things right now that are your priorities that'd be good for us to know?
Erin, may I jump in quickly?
Sure.
I just want to ask a relational question. I'm so curious, Clinton, Tamika, and Omar, what animates you in this work and how you came to it? If you just have a minute or two, I'd be interested to hear that.
That's a great question. Will you ask it again slightly differently so we're clear on the question, and then we'll ask Becky, Tamika, Omar to answer it.
I'm just struck by this opportunity in these programs, and I work for the Community Purchasing Alliance, and we work on the demand side of aggregating purchasing power, and we're in DC, but we're moving to North Carolina. I'm in Hillsborough. I shared in the chat about our PPE program, and when we look at partnerships, we look at the relationships that we're building, and just curious and wanting to understand why. Like, why do you do this work? Why do you show up in this way? Like, what animates you to start being part of building this really unique program?
That's a
I talk so much. I try to reserve the floor to my colleagues first, but I'll give them a shot. But I don't like too much silence and such an exciting question that gets me pumped up. So,
well, you can give me a pump up in just a second. Tamika, what excites you? What animates you about this work?
What animates me about this, this is very exciting to me. I was very excited when we first started planning this, because I believe it's very important that we engage our community. And one thing that UNC Health promotes is Carolina Care. And I believe that this is a part of us showing action to that statement of Carolina Care by making sure that we include our community and that we support our small businesses and our diverse businesses. So that's what it means to me. It shows that, we actually care about our community. We do this for our patients. But we also know that our patients are within this community, right? And we have to make sure that we support in every way. And I believe by supporting small businesses and our diverse business that we are supporting our patients. So I think that's what gave me the passion. And it's very exciting, as I stated. We are very excited about this program. It really means a lot.
Becky, let's go to you and then to Omar and then to Clinton.
Hi, I'm Becky. For me, it's just to help people and just to make a difference, whether it's a big difference or a small difference, just to be able to make an impact. And like Tamika said, just to be able to make an impact and to connect with the community.
Omar?
Yeah, I echo Becky and Tamika's sentiments, and great question, Lauren. So thank you for asking. For me personally, I've had family members that have had small businesses that didn't quite make it. And I've seen businesses in our communities that didn't have the support or weren't able to connect with local leaders and local organizations that really could potentially work with them and help partner with them and advance their business. And so for me, it's a personal and professional kind of mission to really work with our community and businesses of our community to further the program.
I think this is going to be a good place for us to bring ourselves to conclusion. Lauren, I'm really so happy you asked about them. Clinton, will you answer that question also?
Well, they stole all my thunder, but that's cool. That lets me know we're aligned. But I think not to reiterate any of the points. It's the right thing to do, and our organization recognizes that. That's why UNC Health is supporting the development of this supplier diversity program. And look, on a personal level, I'm originally from Chicago, and I launched a program, a supplier diversity program on the south side of Chicago years and years ago. And when I think back of the impact of some of those businesses and certain aspects of that community, it was very rewarding, very fulfilling. And, have the privilege to be able to do that again in my career is really what personally drives me to do that. And again, that's why that's, as you can see, that we all present that way, because there's that blend of that personal passion and commitment, as well as our organizational alignment. So I'll leave it at that.
Fabulous. It looks like we are going to wrap up a little bit early. I want to say a special thank you to Clinton Aziz. He's the System Vice President of Supply Chain for UNC Health, Tamika Goddard, System Director of Purchasing, Becky Dement, the Purchasing Lead, and Omar, who got this whole thing started for us when he reached out and asked if we would partner with UNC Health to help connect UNC Health with local businesses. Omar Wells is the Supplier Diversity Manager. So I'm grateful everybody was able to join us today. We're going to do this again. You'll see if you go to Chamber's website on the calendar, in December, at least December 11th, we are planning to go again in this conversation. We'll see some new people, but if it's valuable for you to come back and have additional conversation or follow up on what you've learned over the last 30 days until we see you there again, do pay attention to the Chamber's calendar about programming that is upcoming. We also have a group of retailers and hospitality and restaurateurs that get together monthly, a group of nonprofits that get together monthly. We've got a group of folks in the real estate industry that get together monthly. You've met Latasha Besgatti. She's the chair of our Black Business Alliance. If you are not getting communication but would like to be part of that organization or Black business leader in our community, you don't need to be the owner of the company. We're looking for senior leadership, but just send an email to me or follow up with Latasha. We'll put you into that communication group. We are sold out on our Rebecca, is it true on our women's event? Do you want to say a word on it? Is there a slot or two left?
We might have a slot or two left on the wait list, but we are asking people to confirm their registrations for tomorrow. And we're excited to be at the Carolina Inn with our keynote speaker, Bell Leadership, hosting for that event with 90 women coming together at the Carolina Inn.
If you're interested in that kind of programming, quarterly, there is programming for women business leaders. You can see all of this on our website. I want to say thank you to our team who helped organize this, Mackenzie and Ori, Rebecca, really appreciate y'all. And with our thanks, we are adjourned. We'll leave this chat open for a second as you all excuse yourselves. And if you had any final questions, wanted to hang out for a minute, we'll leave the conversation open for another minute or two. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you, Aaron. We really appreciate you and your team and your partnership.
Well, we are grateful for you and looking forward to more of this in the future.
And thanks to everybody that took time out of your day to join the call. We really do appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Omar.